Welcome to the fifth and final installment of How to Successfully Write a Literary Criticism. This episode is going to specifically address the final things that you need to take care of as you're preparing your final draft for submission to me or to another professor at another institution. There are a few fundamentals that I'm going to focus on in this particular segment that are absolutely crucial to your success in a final draft being of the mettle that it needs to be for a college level paper. So the first thing that I want to encourage you to do is to take your works cited page. Now, of course, you know that originally was your annotated bibliography. Annotated bibliography, your bibliography was used to basically do the research. It becomes a works cited page as you take those sources and actually cite them in the paper. Hence, works cited, or in other words, works cited actually in the text of your paper. So take that works cited page and actually tear it away from the rough draft that you're using as you're preparing your final draft. Because here's what I do, and I know a number of other professors do. First of all, that works cited page needs to be alphabetized. That's an absolute fundamental. Second, if you're turning it in as an MLA or an APA paper, make sure that you refer to the appropriate paperwork documents that you need to make sure that it's in the proper form. I know that Microsoft Word actually has a citation component tool actually in the program. There are websites out there as well that can help you construct an accurate MLA works cited page format for your final paper. So make sure that you use those particular tools. So once you've got your alphabetized, form correct works cited page, here's what you do. Lay the paper down next to your actual draft and begin going through your draft. As you hit a citation, a parenthetical documentation citation in the paper, check it on the paper and make sure you check it on your works cited page. What you're doing is making sure that as you go through the paper that all of the sources that you cite in the paper match all of the works cited sources that you have in the works cited page. So you're making sure that those are 100% the same. So if you have a parenthetical documentation in the paper that's not included in the works cited, or alternatively an author on your works cited page that you haven't specifically cited in the paper, you have to make sure that those two components of the paper absolutely match. That is a huge red flag for professors, and it will ensure a good form score for you for that particular component of the paper. Next thing, make sure that you check your word count. For this particular assignment, depending if you're my standard on-campus class or my web class, will range between 1,500 and 2,500 words in length. Make sure you do an accurate word count. Now, when I look at word count, I'm looking at word count of analysis. So again, if you're working with a Microsoft Word program, for example, or even a rich text file program, simply delete the works cited page, delete any of your opening, introductory, name, class, semester, and that will give you the actual words of analysis or content. And if it's not 1,500 words or 2,500 words, whatever my minimum is, make sure you amend it. Because when I look at the paper, I don't include the works cited page content as a part of your ultimate word count. Now here's another trick that students do that is something that professors will sniff through pretty readily. And let's say that your ultimate word count ends up at 550 words. And as I go through the paper, I find huge direct quotations that are single-spaced, indented, that are 200 or sometimes even 300 words in content. That is not actual words of analysis. So what I will expect you to do, if you are at 1,550 words of analysis, I'm going to look for that 1,550 words of actual text that you've created and delete out those huge direct quotations that really students tend to use to pad their final word count. So make sure that you're taking care of that as well. Now let's talk about the font and formatting. 12-point font times New Roman, double spaced, single inch margins. I'm going to repeat that. Pretty important basic stuff. 12-point font times New Roman, double space, single inch margins on the paper, and that should take care of the basics there as well. Another trap that students fall into as they're submitting the final paper is they include a lot of parentheses to elaborate further on words or descriptors, or to put dates in parentheses or shows in parentheses. Parentheses in a formal paper, a scholarly paper, should only be used for parenthetical documentation. Rarely are they acceptable because they're informal in nature. Rarely are they acceptable for an actual final draft in an MLA style paper. So avoid using parentheses for those types of informal purposes. Also with an MLA paper and a scholarly research oriented paper, you typically don't want to include images and typically don't need a cover page for that as well. So avoid those bells and whistles that really don't add anything to your analysis and stick to the ideas that are coming out of your head. I hope this series of videos has helped you understand some of the basics, help you avoid some of the traps and pitfalls that students fall into when they're constructing a literary criticism, and I look forward to reading your final drafts, and I hope that you are successful not only in this class but in future papers that you're crafting for other professors down the road. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for listening, and good luck.